Alright, what is going on, guys? Welcome to the updated tier list video. My name is Cbrev. If y'all don't know who I am a 5 times top 50 player on MLB The Show 19. As always, I don't say that to brag. I say that to kind of give you some perspective on how I view things competitively, and then I'm probably a pretty good resource for you guys as far as what's good and what isn't in competitive MLB The Show right now. If you haven't yet, follow me on twitch.tv/Cbrev. Twitter is at CbrevMLB. And if you're seeing this somewhere other than YouTube, my YouTube is Cbrev MLB The Show. Just a couple things to talk about before we get started. I am sick right now, so if I sound like I'm from the island of misfit toys at any point in this video, that's why. I feel like I sound stupid, which is going to make the video awesome. Yeah, and then the second thing I wanted to say before I started this is that there's a lot of subjective and anecdotal, but still some talk around the community that the hitting is worse after the most recent patch, and that it reverted a lot of the changes that patch 1.21 did. This is just a rumor, and I don't know if this will ever be confirmed or denied by SDS. But the game is definitely playing not as well on Legend specifically recently, and so I'm going to give it a couple weeks and kind of feel out the game and generate my opinion on whether I think the hitting changes and patches were reverted or not. And if I feel like there's significant enough of a difference, I will redo this tier list video. So that's just a heads up, but I'm going to go ahead and go with this one anyway because I think it's good and I think it'll still give you guys some good information. So starting off, as always, we're looking at players in their primary position as tier list rankings. So just to go over the color coding again, blue is a guy that is new from the last tier list video, so they weren't on the last tier list video. They're new and I've reviewed them on my channel. Yellow is they're new and I haven't reviewed them yet, but I'm planning on reviewing them. Green means they moved up a tier, red means they moved down a tier, and Javi Baez has his own color, which I will get to later on. But starting off with catcher, nothing's really changed except for the addition of 99 JT Real Muto in tier 1. If you missed my JT Real Muto finest review, go check that video out. One of the best, if not the best catcher in the game. Between the speed and the defense especially, there's no one else like him at the catcher position. Just an all-around beast of a card. Adding on to catchers that were not there before, Buster Posey, Johnny Bench, and Mitch Garver, all tier 2. Pretty good cards, but not as good as the 4 players in tier 1. And then finest Yasmani Grandal I put in tier 3. I did not like that card whatsoever. So like I said, and I'm going to keep saying, the ones with blue I have done a card review on, and it's posted on my YouTube channel. So if you want to look at any of these guys specifically, feel free to go check those out. And a lot of these finest guys that are in yellow in this tier list are to be reviewed very soon, like within the next week or two. So keep that in mind as well. But yeah, my favorite catcher competitively is still Brian McCann. But any of those 4 guys in tier 1 are far and away better than anyone else in the game, in my opinion. So no one really moved in catcher, just some new additions. So first baseman, and with some of these positions, specifically first base and outfield, I had to do some adjusting of my tier rankings because there's so many options now. So I'll talk about that when I get there. But first base was one of them where I kind of moved stuff around. So I think it's pretty obvious to most people in the community that it's either Lou Gehrig or Frank Thomas at this position at this point, assuming you're playing Cody Bellinger in the outfield, which you should be. Eddie Murray and Jeff Bagwell, both very good options as well, just not in the same level that Lou Gehrig and Frank Thomas are. So I still think those are tier 1 worthy first basemen. They're just not in the same class as the top 2. Paul Goldschmidt moving down from tier 1 to tier 2, not because I think he's bad. I still think he's very good and as good as he was when I reviewed him. I just think that there's a lot of players that have come out since him that do the same things but better. Mainly his low vision really costs him, and they're just better options out there. But I still think he's a really good card, super good swing, plays good defense, etc. New guys, the Adrian Gonzalez from SIG teams, good card. the headliner Harmon Killebrew, the finest Josh Bell, and the finest Danny Santana has actually been raking for me in the games that I've used him so far. That card has a really nice swing, so if you're looking for someone new and cheap, maybe look at Josh Bell and Danny Santana. And then Travis Hafner moving down from Tier 2 to Tier 3, once again, because there's so many options at the position. I just don't really envision a scenario where you would want to use Travis Hafner in your lineup. So moving on to second base, a little bit different. In the last tier video, I only had Roberto Alomar in here. Slim Genzi, one of my homies, kindly reminded me that Rogers Hornsby primary position is second base, not third base. So he's now in the second baseman list, and he's a tier 1 in my opinion, as well as the new 99 DJ LeMahieu, 9th inning program boss, which is an amazing card. Like I said, card reviews coming soon. If you were to ask me, I still think the best second baseman in the game is Roberto Alomar, but keep in mind that there are some other guys that have different primaries that would be really good at second base as well. Mainly thinking about finest Ketel Marte would probably be tier 1 at second base, as would finest Francisco Lindor. They're just not listed on this slide because they are not primary second basemen. Not a lot of movement from anyone, just finest Ozzy Albies, Gleyber Torres, and Max Muncy all getting added to tier 3. I was generally not impressed with any of those cards, especially compared to the options you have at this position. So yeah, moving on to third base. A lot of new people. They really flooded the third base market with these finest cards. Tier 1, obviously the best third baseman in the game, I think, is Chipper Jones. Very close second, though, spoiler alert for the card review, is 99 Alex Bregman. That card is absurd at the plate, like literally ridiculous hitter. The new 99 finest Nolan Arenado, also in tier 1. And 99 George Brett, still one of the best options in my opinion. Still a beast, and he's all the way down to costing like 15k stubs, which is pretty crazy. Tier 2, not too far behind the bottom guys at tier 1, just missing a little bit I think, but 99 Anthony Rendon, 98 Matt Chapman, 98 Rafael Devers, 97 Chris Bryant, and 96 Evan Longoria moved down from tier 1. Once again, not because I think he's bad. I still think that card is amazing. I just don't think he's in the same class as the other 4 guys in tier 1. So like I said, I had to do some adjusting with the tiers with all the new options that we now have in the game. And then 99 Paul Molitor, Eugenio Suarez, and Brian Anderson, all tier 3. So yeah. Moving on to shortstop, I put 1A next to Honus Wagner, as I always do, because he's far and away the best shortstop in the game, but this is actually a position that had some of the biggest movement in this tier list because we've gotten a plethora of new options that we didn't have before with the new headliners and finest and stuff like that, just since I've done the last tier list. So tier 1, I should have stated before that these are in no particular order, by the way. The best shortstops in my opinion are 97 Jose Reyes, 99 Ernie Banks, 98 Francisco Lindor, and then I mentioned that Javier Baez has his own color. It's because I haven't reviewed Javi Baez, and I don't plan on reviewing Javi Baez because I'm not going to be doing the digital pre-order. That is just a consumer choice by me. I don't really believe in digital pre-orders, especially when the reward is for this year's game and not next year's game. I think it's kind of well, I'm sure you guys can figure out what I want to say, but I'll just leave it at that. It's just my personal consumer choice to not engage in that type of activity. So I envision he would be tier 1 and a beast, but I will never know because I will never have the card. But just looking at tier 1, obviously we know Jose Reyes is a goon. Ernie Banks, one of the best swings, one of the best power hitting shortstops in the game, and then Francisco Lindor, also an amazing card for shortstop. So you have a lot of options at shortstop now, which is pretty cool, and which is also why we have 3 guys moving down from tier 1 to tier 2. These 3 guys, the reason they were tier 1 before was because they played pretty good defense, or they played amazing defense, and they were an above average hitter. Now that we actually have a ton of options to have shortstops that are good hitters as well, I think these guys are more deserving of a tier 2 ranking, because I think a lot of the guys in tier 1 hit a lot better than the guys that were previously in tier 1, and I'm talking about Cal Ripken, Pee Wee Reese, and Omar Vizquel. in this sense. So still definitely good options, but I think there are better options now, which is why they moved down to Tier 2. Also, finest Fernando Tatis Jr. jumping into Tier 2. Very similar card to 96 Hanley Ramirez, so that makes sense. And then Ozzie Smith moving down to Tier 3. He just doesn't hit at all for me, and at this point in the game, you want someone with at least a semblance of power at pretty much every position, just because you can, and there's so many options. So that's the movement for shortstop. And then moving on to outfield is where we really got picky. So basically I moved all the tiers down one, starting at Tier 2. So what you see in Tier 3 right now is the guys I had listed in Tier 2 in the last video, and the guys that were Tier 3 in the last video I just removed entirely, because I don't think they're worthy of putting on the slide anymore. There have been so many outfield options now, and there are so many good ones that a lot of things had to change with this position. And mainly what made me decide what's Tier 1 is pure 5-tool players. So there are a lot of really good outfielders that I have listed in Tier 2, but at this point in the year, in my opinion, you're not a Tier 1 outfielder unless you have all 5 tools. So that's why you're looking at Willie Mays, Tony Gwynn, Al Kaline, Ken Griffey Jr., the new Cody Bellinger, and Andre Dawson as your Tier 1 outfielders. Ken Griffey Jr. very debatably Tier 2 as well, because he plays such terrible defense with some of the awful animations he gets at times. But I still put him in Tier 1 just because I think he's one of the best pure hitters in the game. But definitely could be a Tier 2 option, just wanted to say that. Looking at Tier 2, like I said, there's a ton of really good guys. They're just missing one of the tools mostly. Ty Cobb's missing arm strength, but still a beast. Vlad Guerrero missing the fielding. Richie Ashburn missing the arm strength and the power, but still one of the glitchiest swings in the game. And then obviously Ted Williams, Babe Ruth, Christian Yelich, all absolutely rake, but lacking a lot defensively, as does Ketel Marte, and then Ronald Acuna Jr., pretty good 5-tool player except for his vision. His vision is very low, and it's actually painful on higher difficulties. Otherwise, he would be a 5-tool player, but his contact is really, I've really struggled putting barrel on ball with that card. Still a good card, though. Definitely Tier 2 worthy. And then Tier 3, the new Juan Soto finest, the new Bryce Harper finest, and the new finest Jorge Soler, all jumping in there. Should have said this earlier, but if you don't see a guy on here and he's pretty relevant, it means I might have accidentally missed him, so drop a comment below. But if you don't see a guy on here and he's not really that relevant, it's probably because I don't think that he is worthy of even being on the slide as far as power level goes. So just keep that in mind. Yeah, so that's outfield. Moving on to starting pitcher, a lot of things changing as well, mostly because of new options. So Tier 1 and Tier 2 have changed the most, and I know it's kind of stupid, but I kind of had to separate Tier 2A and Tier 2B because there's a lot of guys that I would put in Tier 2, and there's kind of a big jump from one section to another section. But Tier 1, obviously Clayton Kershaw is better than everyone still, but the other two guys that I think you should have in your rotation no matter what, if you're looking for the best team possible, is Bob Feller and the new Kerry Wood. The new Kerry Wood is completely disgusting, especially on higher difficulties. His pitch repertoire is some of the sickest pitch repertoire I've ever seen in the history of MLB The Show. Combined with the small PCIs, it makes it really tough to hit that card, and I think he is easily one of the best starting pitching options in the game. Moving over to Tier 2, we have Adam Wainwright and Tom Seaver moving down from Tier 1. I think a lot of this has to do with their low per nines, and the fact that there are so many good hitting options now in the game that they really struggle because you're giving your opponents bigger PCIs by using cards like that. And so their stuff is still really good, but you're looking at bigger PCI sizes now, and so they're kind of more in the Tier 2 category in my opinion. Other guys that are in the top level of Tier 2 are Zach Greinke, Blyleven Price, Corey Kluber, Lefty Grove moving back up to Tier 2 from Tier 3. I think he has improved a lot actually because left-handed pitching has gotten a lot better since a lot of the good hitters that are being used now are lefties. So I think he's improved a lot. And then the new 99 Garrett Cole I would put in the top level of Tier 2. Bottom level of Tier 2, the new Jacob deGrom and Charlie Morton. Both cards very good, but probably not as good as the other options in Tier 2A. And then Bumgarner, Hershiser, Lester still sitting down there. Still good cards. And then new players, 99 Walter Johnson I did not think was very good, so he goes in Tier 3. And then the postseason Anibal Sanchez actually surprised me a lot. Pretty good pitcher. Probably not as good on Hall of Fame and Legend as he's been on All-Star, but still surprisingly good and definitely worthy of a spot, at least in Tier 3. Relief and closing pitcher. I separated these a little bit differently as well. So in Tier 1, by far, in my opinion, the best two relievers in the game are Kenley Jansen and Billy Wagner. However, everyone in Tier 1, in my opinion, should probably be in your bullpen. And the reason Sergio Romo is in red is because I moved him down from best relievers in the game to just the lower part of Tier 1. I don't think he's absolutely necessary for your bullpen. He's been not dominating as much. He's still really good, still definitely Tier 1, but I just reevaluated this and thought if I could only have two relievers in the game, it would have to be Kenley and Billy Wagner, so I just kind of moved him down to give some perspective. Tier 2, we have Rollie Fingers moving down from Tier 1. I don't know what it is. Everything about that card, looking at it, screams that it should be amazing, and in-game he just seems to get beat up a lot. I don't know if it's because people have been facing his type of card since day one because he had such a good team affinity card, or if I've just been getting really unlucky with BABIP, but whatever it is, Rollie Fingers moving down to Tier 2, not as dominant as I thought he would be. Some new faces though. Rob Nin moving up a lot, and I will say that this is the one slide where things are ordered, in my opinion. So in Tier 2 we have the lefties and righties separated as well, if you didn't notice that. But the new Josh Hader has been absolutely dominant for me. Very debatably Tier 1. I just don't think I've gotten enough reps with him to really put him in Tier 1 yet, but the card I don't think has given up a single run for me yet. The PCI is so small using that card. It's crazy. Also, a couple of surprising ones that are really good in Tier 2 is the new 97 Liam Hendriks, who has also been dominating for me. Surprisingly good card. And then coming out of nowhere, 90 postseason Ryan Helsley. That card is a monster. Yeah, I mean, hard to explain, but that card is so good. He throws a cutter that's 9 miles an hour slower than his four-seam fastball, and his per nines are in the 110s. That card is just an absolute beast, and definitely one of the best budget relievers in the entire game. Very surprised, but very pleasantly surprised that card dominates. And then obviously 99 Kirby Yates at the bottom of Tier 2, not as dominant as I thought it would be, but still probably fine. Yeah, and you'll see who I have in my bullpen and who I would suggest having in your bullpen as we get through the next couple slides. So, as always, we'll end this with some squad layouts, so to speak. So, the best team possible has changed very slightly. Instead of Ty Cobb in the outfield, I now have Cody Bellinger, who I think is probably the second best outfield option in the entire game. Complete 5-tool player and almost maxed out power from Cody Bellinger, and he's a lefty. So I think that card is definitely worthy of the right field spot. Looking at the bench, I replaced Lou Gehrig with Babe Ruth, just because Babe Ruth is a better lefty bench bat than Lou Gehrig. And I replaced my utility guy, Ben Zobrist, with Ketel Marte, who does pretty much everything Ben Zobrist can do, but better, and also plays second base and shortstop. So good utility guy off the bench. And then obviously Kerry Wood replacing Tom Seaver in the rotation. And then the only things that changed in the bullpen are Eckersley replacing Rollie Fingers and Josh Hader replacing Andrew Miller. So that's in my opinion, the best team possible, as well as how I would order the lineup. So if you want to screenshot that, go ahead. It's a pretty good indication of who I think the absolute best players in the game are. Next slide is the best budget lineup, assuming you're a level 1 bronze. So obviously all of the XP rewards are not included in here. And not a lot has changed. A lot of these really cheap guys come from SIG teams, so they're free. Just a couple of changes. I put George Brett at third base just because, like I said earlier, he's become so cheap. I think $15K for George Brett is just an insane price. And so I think that's a good spot for him on the budget lineup, replacing Matt Carpenter. On the bench, we got finest Josh Bell replacing our switch hitter in 89 Jose Reyes. Josh Bell only about 12K, as is Eddie Murray, who's also about only 12K, replacing Jimmy Fox on the bench. So everyone on the screen, aside from Richie Ashburn, you can buy for 15K or less, and I think Richie Ashburn is about 21K. And he is definitely worth it too. So that's the best budget squad. Obviously, you can fill in XP rewards and replace guys because most people hopefully aren't bronze level 1 anymore. But yeah, and then finally ending the video with my current squad. I replaced Roberto Alomar at second base with Ketel Marte because I think they're pretty similar players, and honestly, I just wanted to have more fun. I personally have been gravitating more towards fun than good recently, especially on the main account. So I threw Ketel Marte in there for Roberto Alomar, but I still think Alomar is very good. Obviously, no one would disagree with me on that. Swapped Tony Gwynn and Ty Cobb from the bench, so now Tony Gwynn is starting, Ty Cobb on the bench. Everyone else is the same except for the 8-hole. At shortstop, I have Francisco Lindor instead of Ben Zobrist, obviously the finest version. Just for fun, again, replacing my switch hitters, trying to have more fun. And those cards are definitely as good, if not better, than the ones they replaced. On the bench, I replaced my right-handed bat of Matt Williams with Andre Dawson, just because I think having the outfield option is good off the bench, and Andre Dawson can pinch run if I need him to, whereas Matt Williams could not. I already talked about Ty Cobb, Tony Gwynn, and then Ted Williams replacing Richie Ashburn, just because he's a better left-handed bench bat. Important to note that I don't have Honus Wagner or Babe Ruth or Chipper Jones on my main account, so that's where those guys are. For the rotation, I replaced Corey Kluber with Kerry Wood, and I replaced Burt Blyleven with David Price. Once again, mostly just looking for guys that I have fun pitching with that are also very good. You guys know I'm a huge fan of Kluber and Blyleven. I just tend to rotate some of these guys out of my rotation a lot just to have more fun and have some variety. So, and then finally the bullpen. The only change was that I put Eckersley in for fingers, and I put, instead of running 5 righties, 2 lefties, I'm back to running 4 righties, 3 lefties. So I put Eckersley in for fingers, and then, oh, Eckersley was already in, sorry. So I replaced fingers with Josh Hader. So I took out a righty and put in a lefty. So my current bullpen is Jansen, Romo, Davis, Eckersley, Wagner, Hader, Chapman. So that's going to go ahead and wrap it up for this tier list. I hope this was helpful for you guys. Like I said, if you ever have any questions or want to comment on a certain guy that you did not see or hear about in this video, feel free to drop a comment below. I read all of my comments and try to respond to as many as I can. So I hope this tier list video was helpful for you guys. Stay tuned for another one, maybe within the next month or so, depending on how the game is playing. And yeah, I'll see you guys later. Thanks for watching. Appreciate all the support. I'll see y'all in the next video. Peace.